This video covers the print statement, which you'll find is one of the most important things you'll learn in Python, especially early in the semester. Why is the print statement so important? Well, any program will not display results until you explicitly tell it to do so. And the print statement is Python's way of saying, look, here's what I want to actually output. Here's what I want to display. This video is important for you because there are various different versions of the print statement, and we're going to go through each of them in turn. Here's a very simple example. If you have a variable a and you assign it the integer value of 42, you can simply display that result by printing a. You'll notice the parentheses, those are required. And when you print a variable, you're displaying its value. You're not printing the actual letter a, you're displaying the value that is stored in a. A print statement with no argument will display a blank line. So if you remove the a from that print statement, what it will do is simply generate a blank line. That also can be very useful because sometimes it will help break up your display a bit. If you want to print strings and numbers together, again, you can do that using a print statement. One way is simply to break up the different variables using commas. So in this example, my street is Main Street. The street number is 100, which is, of course, an integer. And so we have a mixture here. We have an integer, which is street number, and we have a string, which is Main Street. To print those values together, I can just simply say, inside quotes, I live at the street number and street, and separate them with commas. This statement will actually display, I live at 100 Main Street. You'll notice that if you use commas, it will automatically insert a space. So if you look at the word at here in the end of the first part, you'll notice that there is no space there, but there still is a space between the word at and the number 100. Similarly, there's a space between 100 and Main Street. When you use commas, Python automatically inserts those spaces for you. There are two special control codes that can be very, very useful. One is the \t and the other one is \n. And on my keyboard, the \ key is immediately above the return key. The \t generates a tab, which is very useful for generating tables. \n generates a new line. Now, you may not use this often, but it is, again, very useful, especially if you want to generate a table. If you look at the print statement in the first line, that's going to generate the headings of our table: wage, hours, and pay. You'll notice between wage and hours, the backslash is actually, the \t is embedded directly between wage and hours. And similarly, the \t is also embedded between hours and pay. At the end of that print statement, there is a new line. Now, the print statement itself will automatically generate a new line, so you'll actually get a blank line, which you see in the output directly below the column headings. The second line prints the values, and you'll notice between the values we have the \t surrounded with single quotes and the number 40. \t again, and the multiplication of the wage times the hours. That generates the first line in the table, and the first line of the table indicates how much that person is paid that week. In this case, it's $620. The \n then in the print statement generates the new line, and then again we print 15, 30, and the multiplication of 15 and 30 to get the person's pay. You can see how this breaks this up in a very tabular format. Very useful when you want to generate that type of output. Fstrings are probably the most useful and powerful statement format, and actually we'll probably use these the most this semester. To build on the examples we've done before, we have wage and hours again, but you'll notice here the print statement, there's the letter F directly before the single quote. That is required for Fstrings, hence their name. But the nice thing about Fstrings is that you can embed the variables directly inside that string, and as long as you surround it with curly braces, Python will print out the value of that variable, not that actual string itself. So in other words, when you put in the curly brace wage and another curly brace, it will print the value of wage, which in this case is 15.50. Similarly with hours, same thing. It will replace that with 40.5. And then when we say your pay for the week is, it'll do the multiplication and it'll print the output. You can see the actual display output there below, which is very, very nice. Now you'll notice one disadvantage of this, at least in this format, is that the wage per hour is 15.5, and you'll notice that doesn't really look like we usually see it. We want it rounded to 2 decimal places. So we're going to fix that actually in the next line. So if we want to format output, especially with floats, we can do that using by rounding to certain number of decimal places. When the numeric types are floats, and that is that they have decimals, we can specify a certain number of decimal places by using :.2f. :.2f will actually round the output to 2 decimal places, or will force it, in fact, to 2 decimal places. :.1f will round it to 1 decimal place. The value of this is that we can format the output exactly how we expect it. And now you'll see that the output looks more like we would expect. When we talk about somebody's wage per hour, we usually expect it to be to 2 decimal places, and you'll see that that output now looks more like what we expect.